And if you're not there, arriving there shortly. We're so happy that you are joining this episode of Our Ancestors' Voices, a program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Our topic today is the unknown radicalism of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Apologize for the typo there, but we know that that means Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., no one else. And it's a wonderful day. I hope you're experiencing that where you are. It's been a very active weekend for APRP work, where I am really doing a lot of work to rebuild our party in this area. And so Friday night, we had the honor and privilege here in Sacramento, California, or really Miwok land is really what it is, to participate in our Quads demonstration in support of the Palestinian people. And we were able to do that. And I was offered the opportunity to speak for the APRP, which really was an honor, and took that up. And then today we were able to do some additional solidarity work here in Sacramento. There was a organization that sponsored an event to support our community members who are LGBTQ, particularly trans folks. And the call went out to come out and organize security because the white supremacists were slated to come. They had made threats to come, and sure enough, they did come. Representatives from the Proud Boys and other fascist organizations, and there was some violence out there today, but we were able to successfully secure the families that came out for the event, especially there were many African families that were there. I talked to a wonderful sister who had her children with her, and she talked about how she is an African woman, but she's also LGBTQ. So she wants her kids to understand the entire picture. And she expressed great gratitude for us being there and having a presence and doing that kind of security work. So, I don't care. A lot of us really have a lot of backward thinking, but don't send those messages here. We're not going to read them. We don't care what you think. We are trying to organize for all of our people on the planet Earth. And unlike many of the people who complain about it, we will put our bodies on the line. We will risk death to support all of our people. We will continue to do that as long as we have breath. So we're thankful for the opportunity to do that work, and we will continue to do it for as long as we're humanly possible. So thank you for joining us today for this Our Ancestors' Voices, the unknown radicalism of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we get started, as we always do. We start by saying Our Ancestors' Voices is a program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the APRP. The APRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass Pan-African political party that is based in Africa. So we don't have, you don't have to be Christian to join. You don't have to be Muslim. You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to practice Santeria or Ife. You don't have to do Verdun. You don't have to be atheist. We have people who represent all of those things. What you do have to be is an African who is committed to working for African unity all over the planet Earth, and that understands that that is manifested with one unified socialist Africa being the objective, which is the definition of Pan-Africanism, one unified socialist Africa. And as long as you see that, you are welcome to join this All African People's Revolutionary Party. Our work to achieve Pan-Africanism, we outline in the outstanding literature of Kwame Nkrumah, the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, the cover of which is displayed on the screen. And we really encourage you to not only just get the book and read it individually, but understand it from the context of the organizational framework and the work we are doing in 2023, because that's what the book talks about. And Our Ancestors' Voices is hosted each week by myself, Ajamu Umi, and my biological and ideological daughter, Shukura Umi. So we're glad to be here for this topic, the unknown radicalism of Dr. Martin Luther King. And so to get us started, I will turn it over to Shakura.
Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. We hope that you continue to be well. And just a quick reminder, we are still asking for donations for our infamous African Liberation Day event that is coming up very, very quickly in the month of May. We are hopeful that you all will continue to consider donating. If you have already done so, we thank you. And we ask that you continue spreading the word as much as possible. As we mentioned before, we have several different outlets that are causing of monetary support. So everything from paying for speakers to travel expenses, helping our comrades to get across the continent into different countries where in-person events will be taking place, the technology, the food for the speakers, the speaking fees, the translating fees, all of these things, right? And so we are asking for your donations. If you're not sure where to donate, you are welcome to donate to www.abetterworld.me. Again, the site is www.abetterworld.me. And we thank you in advance. As we've talked about before, African Liberation Day is one of the biggest events that the All African People's Revolutionary Party host. And we definitely see ALD as our holiday and a way of resisting the capitalist holidays that are pushed down our throats every single month. So this is definitely a routine and a ritual that we celebrate and we enjoy, and we ask that you celebrate and enjoy it with us as well. So moving on that same note, speaking of ALD, we continue to help each other kind of think about why we're being socialized to think of radical and being radical, the verb of being radical, why these are bad things, right? And so just kind of unpacking that a little bit, we know, Hollywood media is funded and protected by capitalism and imperialism. And so when we see different examples of people, quote, being radical, then we understand that usually the outcome of that is that they will be arrested or in some cases even killed, right? Depending on what the action is that they've done or whatnot. And so the purpose of today's seminar is to kind of unpack that a little bit and to really kind of dig into why there's nothing wrong with being radical. And so in unpacking that, we have to think about all the different people who have, quote, been radical in our time frame and how beneficial it has been to us, okay? So we have to think about how if none of our ancestors who had the power to fight against colonialism, if they hadn't done that, then none of us would be in a space we're in now, and colonization would have taken over the whole continent. What does that mean? Because some forms of colonization have still taken over, but we have resisted and we have fought back and we are fighting back and we will continue to fight back. So what I'm proposing is if none of us had been radical, if none of us had resisted the slave capturers trying to capture us and put us on the slave ships, if none of us had fought back, if we all just walked onto the ship with no problem, if none of us had fought the colonizers and moved them out of our countries, then none of our African countries would be able to celebrate independence today. Why does that affect you, especially if you don't live on the continent? Well, it affects you because that's an opportunity for us to study our past and to understand that we have the ability to change the conditions of tomorrow and today, because it's already happened and we've already changed them. If you don't believe me, you can think about Ghana reaching independence because of the Ghanaians and because of the leadership of Kwame Nkrumah. If you don't agree with that, then you can think about Guinea-Bissau and think about the work that Amilcar Cabral has done. If you don't think about that, you can think about Madame Andre Touré and the work that she did as the first lady to Sekou Touré, and the list goes on and on. We can think of Shirley Graham Du Bois. We can think of Elizabeth Sabiko. All of these different people who have been radical in a very, very positive way that has done nothing but benefit us as a society and as a whole. We can even think about some non-African people. So we can think of our comrade Che Guevara and the work that they did fighting colonizers, Marilyn Buck, and the work that they did helping to make sure that our sister Assata was able to get to freedom because she knew that Assata had not done that crime and should not have been punished in that way. I mean, the list goes on and on and on since the beginning of time. And so we just ask the question, if you really think about it, standing up for a system that doesn't value you and not being radical, how far has that really gotten us? And so we have to really unpack that a little bit, because I don't know about you, but at some point, my ethics really starts to get in the way. And it's going to become a problem if I'm not really speaking up when I know something is being said that's not right. So you can think of different ways to do that, and you can start practicing that today. You don't have to wait until you join an organization. We want you to join an organization, but you shouldn't just be radical because you're in an organization. You should be radical because that's a personal objective that you are trying to practice on a day-to-day basis. And no matter what spaces you find yourself in, you can still elicit radical behavior in that space. And so, we're asking you to commit to a principle, right? We're asking you to commit to a value or a moral, however you want to define radicalism. And we're asking you to be committed to that, to be devoted to it, to continue to be consistent with it. As I said before, it might start with you just having a conversation with someone else. Last semester we had a mass shooter here in Memphis, and the shooter ended up being an African. And of course, I was having conversations with different people, and white supremacy was roaring its ugly head. And so a lot of people were like, oh, I just can't believe, that he would shoot all these people. And then just a week before that, we had an African who kidnapped a European and raped her. And so it's like, okay, and I listened, and yeah, but also, like I said, it's interesting that we're focusing so much on him as an individual. I said, sure, this person obviously should not have killed and raped this person, okay? And this other person should not have drove around the city of Memphis killing these people. I said, but in both cases, none of us are addressing capitalism. And everybody just looked at me, and I said, the system has failed us. Both of these people clearly have psychological needs, but mental health is always the first program to be cut. Why? Because people don't matter. And more importantly, their mental health needs do not matter. As if it's not about making someone else money, then it does not matter. It does not matter, because capitalism is not going to let you interrupt the cash flow production. It's not going to let you interrupt that. That's the whole purpose of capitalism, is to protect that cash flow and to make sure that private entities and corporations will continue to make money off of you, off of me, off of her, off of them, off of that person down the street, off of the people outside who are not even listening to the seminar right now, off of people in China, off of people in Japan, off of people in Haiti, people in Costa Rica, every single place on this world. That is the objective. And if you are in favor of the private entity corporation making money, then they will welcome you, because you can help them make more money. But if you are against that, then you must be stopped, because therefore you are radical, and you are too radical, and you are radicalizing other people. And that is a threat to them, and threats need to be taken out and terminated. Okay, so we have to understand that, you all, and be very clear about what's at stake here. Capitalism does not care about you. It does not care about you. Even if you are willing to die for capitalism, it will allow you to die, and it will move on to the next chump who will still make money for capitalism. So you have to understand what you're up against. You have to understand that your life does not matter. The only reason that your life would matter is based on your class status, how much income you have that you can contribute to give you the elitist value that people are seeing. Because unfortunately, we determine how we treat one another based on how much money we know they have. And so we have to unpack that more. We have to understand that that's a very sick way of dealing with other people. And again, if we're being radical about it, then that means we understand that no one should be treated differently based on how much money they have. We understand that class division needs to be the first system of oppression that needs to go. We understand that. And that's why the AAPRP has the socialist background that they have, because we believe in socialism. And more importantly, we're hoping to achieve a zero class divide one day, because we want to excel and promote up to communism. Okay. And so just in closing, as I wrap up this slide and move to the next, we should think more in depth about why radicalism is a very good thing, and why we should not be afraid of it, and how one of the first things that we all can do if we want to be radical is to consider speaking up when things need to be addressed. Maybe that's at your job. Maybe it's at a baby shower that you're going to. Maybe it's at a wedding. If you hear someone saying something inappropriate, if you hear people speaking homophobically, speak up. If you hear people speaking transphobically, speak up. If you hear patriarchal behavior, speak up. The worst that could happen is you will offend someone or lose a potential friendship. But I can tell you this right now, if they can't handle you speaking the truth, especially if you're basing your analysis on political education and they are not, then that means that they probably weren't meant to be your friend anyway, because they're not going to be able to handle your ideological perspectives anyway. So just take a stance and actually stand up for a value that you believe in, that you can go to sleep with and be unapologetic about, because that's what's going to change the world. And radicalism is going to help us all maintain where we need to go. Again, we can't just have all the sacrifice from our ancestors and not continue on with that torch. That's not fair to them and all the work that they did. Next slide, please. All right, and then just in closing, as I continue to remind us that we need to donate for the African Liberation Day Fund. So again, please continue to donate to www.abetterworld.me, www.abetterworld.me. Okay, we have so many bills for African Liberation Day, you all, so please continue to support. And so just in thinking more about why radicalism is not a bad thing, why being radical is not a bad thing, contrary to what we've been taught, it is not a bad thing. And so thinking more about that, what kind of values do you all hold? What values make you who you are? What's important to you as a person? What's not important to you? Do you value the fact that you have an advance of truth, even if there are consequences? So again, taking the opportunity to speak out against things that you know are wrong. You're risking not being popular by doing that. But if it's based on truth that you're speaking of, then isn't it worth it? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to just let lies protrude out. You don't want to just let other people mix lies. You want to actually get some truth going, because lies have gotten us to the point where we're at today, and we don't want to continue there, right? That is not a world that I want my children growing up in. That is not a world that I want to be breathing oxygen from, where people are just basing lies after lies and ignorance and lack of information because people are so afraid of actually doing the research and learning and growing, okay? And so we have to think a little bit more critically about that in terms of what are some benefits of valuing truth over the consequences, because there will be consequences, but there's going to be consequences if you tell lies too. So to me, you might as well tell the truth and at least have consequences that you can deal with. Why? Because everything you're saying is based off of what is right and what is just in the world. You're not basing it off of something that is misleading because you're trying to profit, okay? And so again, we're putting people first and doing that. That's really the overall objective. A lot of times when we really think about why people are being radical, it's because they're trying to do something that benefits humanity. And all of us should be expecting of ourselves to do that. None of us should be okay and docile with the idea that we can just promote ourselves individually. All of us should expect ourselves to do something for humanity every single day. And you should literally wake up and you should ask yourself, what is something I can do today that has nothing to do with me, but can help somebody else or benefit another person in this world? Because it's not just about me. It's not just about me. There are too many people who have sacrificed for us, people we don't even know, and people who don't even know us. There are people fighting right now who don't even know our names, but they know that their fight and their contributions and their actions are going to impact us, because a lot of those folks are fighting on the continent, which means they understand that whichever direction the continent moves in, those actions are going to affect the Africans that are everywhere, especially in the diaspora. And so we think a little bit more about that. And so asking yourself, what are your values? What are your morals? What's important to you? Is it important to you that people know that you sold out? Is it important to you that people don't know that you sold out? Is it important to you that you know that you sold out? Or are you interested in not selling out? Or is that world not working for you anymore? Is there something else that you're looking for? Are you interested in something with more substance, right? Are you motivated by the desire to be a better person? And what does that really mean? Because you can't be a, quote, better person and still support capitalism. It's an oxymoron. Why? Because being a better person means that you're still trying to benefit humanity. Because being a better person means that you are going to influence society and economics and social circumstances and social constructs, which means other people are going to benefit from your better person and better actions that you're doing. Capitalism does not fit in that puzzle. It does not, because capitalism doesn't value people, which means it's not going to value you being a better person. It's going to care less about you being a better person, and it's going to politely remove you out of the structure because you are a threat to what? Capitalism making money and profiting and making sure that private entities and corporations continue to make money. So you have to really ask yourself, what society do you want to be a better person in? Because you can't be a better person and support capitalism. You could be a better person and resist capitalism. Sure. I know plenty of people who do that every single day, and they will continue to do it every single day until the system changes. And so that's very fine and well, but how far are you willing to go with that? Are you going to be a better person regardless of how uncomfortable it may make you? Are you just a better person because we're in the month of April and we're talking about Dr. King? Or are you a better person all days of the year because you understand that you have a responsibility to make this world a better place? Some of us are celebrating birthdays in the month of April, but we are choosing to do things for humanity and ways of celebrating that. We're not interested in just going to the casino for ourselves because we understand that there are much larger stakes at play, and we understand that it's our responsibility to help contribute to the world. We understand that the ancestors that we don't even know about are dying and have died so that we could be in the screen sitting in front of these computers today making a difference. I was just thinking the other day about how I'm so close to Mississippi. I'm so close to Alabama. And I think all the time about the ancestors who were escaping off the plantations. I think about the ancestors who didn't make it. I think about the ancestors who had dogs chasing after them. And I think about the ancestors who were looking for Quaker houses because they were just trying to get to a better place so that they could regroup and do what? Go back and get more. Because they didn't want to just save themselves. They wanted to go back and help other people get free too. I think about people who did that countless times, and they did it because they wanted us to survive, you all. They didn't want us to just have Mercedes S-classes and Benz and have PhDs. They didn't want us to pledge Alpha Kappa Alpha and have a PhD and become a superintendent of an education district. They wanted so much more for us. And we need to understand that. And we have a responsibility to understand that. It is not okay to just have our Mercedes Benz and our houses. That is not okay. That does nothing for society. And no one struggled for you to do all the things you did just so that you could stop the system right there. It's our responsibility to keep it going. We have a responsibility, not just to ourselves, but to people everywhere. Because nobody got where we are today without struggle and sacrifice, which means we need to continue that. The last thing I will end on is just helping us to think about, what is our mark going to be? Is our mark going to be that we were too scared to be radical? Because fear is a real thing, and I understand that. But at the same time, you have a responsibility to understand that you can use that fear. You can't tell me that our ancestors weren't scared. Of course they were. But they still did what they had to do. And sometimes fear can help you be brave, even in knowing that. So join an organization that's working for justice, donate for African Liberation Day, be radical, and remember what your values are, because that's going to be the end at the end of the day. Ashe.
Ashe. Obrigada. Thank you very much, Shakura. And before we delve into Dr. King's unknown radicalism deeper, just want to reiterate what you said about African Liberation Day. It's an institution for African liberation. We've talked about this before, so we really want to ask you to donate, dig deep and donate. We have African Liberation Day coming up next month. We'll be organizing commemorations all over the African world, particularly at home throughout Africa. And we, as Shakur said, we need financial resources in order to support those observations. This institution is critically important for African people because what we get out of it is the understanding that we are a dignified people and we are one people all over the world, and our futures are tied together no matter where we live, and we can unite and create a world where we can take care of our babies and demand that our babies be treated with respect and dignity, and that we can make a further contribution to the rest of the planet Earth. And I think that the values that I've learned in 39 years as an active organizer in the APRP, this is what we want to pronounce among all 2 billion of our people, using institutions like African Liberation Day in order to ensure that that happens. I mentioned at the beginning of the program, about 2 hours ago, I was out supporting our trans community, supporting our African trans community. They had an event today and the white supremacists showed up. They said they were going to show. And unlike a lot of us, these people don't make idle threats. If they say they're going to show up, you need to be prepared for them to come. And they came to be violent. One of them made the error of, one of the Proud Boys made the stupid mistake of charging over onto our side, and he got a great present for the rest of the day that he's going to probably, the ambulance had, I'll just say the ambulance had to come and take him away. So that's what happened to him. And the other one, I'm in the front there doing security. And the point I'm trying to make right now is the other one standing there on the corner with the Europa symbol on his shirt and a swastika. And we did the program about Europa and what that symbol looks like. So if you haven't seen it, you should check it out, because we told you then that these people are all over the place, not just in the United States, all over the world. But anyway, he's standing on the corner. He's standing about 10 feet from me. And my job, I'm clear, is to be there to ensure that these folks could have their event and have their safe space. That's my job. That's my solidarity work. I don't give a damn about that white supremacist. And so I'm telling the people to stay on the sidewalk and stay back and let that devil do whatever the hell he's going to do. And him and the other ones that were with him. And he started calling me the N-word. And I just said, I didn't even address him. I addressed the people. I said, I've been called the N-word by way better than that clown. And everybody laughed. I'm like, so that, I don't understand how after 500 plus years, they can't come up with a new insult. Like, that's old and tired. Like, I've been called that so many times that, you're not going to really, if the objective is to register something by calling me that's just not going to happen. And then he said something else. And then that's the first time I addressed him. I said, well, if you really want to get a rise out of me, bring your ass over here. And then you'll have a very bad rest of the day, like your friend that got carted off. So my point is that I don't have to, and that's what I was telling the people, like this man is here and these people with him, they want you to react to them and get all upset. I'm not upset. Look, I know what America is. The APRP has prepared me. I know exactly what this country is. It's a backward, decadent empire. I'm happy that those people came out today. I wish they all would start wearing the shirts and express their views. He was doing the Heil Hitler salute, and I started clapping. I'm like, good, let's bring it all to the surface so everybody can understand that these APRP people are not crazy, that this is the country that we live in. This is the world that we live in. Why would I be shocked by it? You got to be out of your damn mind in 2023 if you're shocked by the appearance of white supremacists. You should get your ass beat if you're that naive and on alert about what's going on in the world today. So the party has prepared us for this reality, and we're prepared in all many ways possible. And those crackers knew that, because they weren't trying to come across that street. They talked a lot of trash, but they were not trying to come across that street. So my point is that these type of values are what institutions like African Liberation Day give to our people. And y'all know we desperately need that, because right now we sit around here and, well, if they come, then we can call the police. You're just out of your damn mind if that's what you really believe. And we got to give people the proper education so that we can get beyond that kind of slave mentality. So please donate to African Liberation Day 2023. Please donate. Go to the site there, abetterworld.me. We've got to prepare our people. These people are coming. The white woman went over and talked to the neo-Nazi. He told her he drove 4 hours to come here. These people are serious. So we better be serious. So we are trying to do all the serious work we can do. So please, 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 please donate to African Liberation Day 2023. And let's talk about an African who, without question, was serious. And that was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And if we talk about his evolving consciousness, we know that Dr. King was dedicated to justice, not ego. He was dedicated to justice. He was concerned about the greater good beyond himself and his family. And that's why anyone who's serious about the struggle for justice respects Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Even those of us that are revolutionaries who don't even have 5% of what we believe in that is in agreement with what Dr. King was talking about and what he was doing, we still got to respect him, because you've got to respect someone who lives a life based on principle, who is committed to justice and not just ego. And despite the fact that civil rights organizations like the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, etc., eventually moved beyond the beliefs of Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., the focus on segregation, the focus on nonviolence, they moved beyond those beliefs. He remained committed to his beliefs. That's the problem. It's like so many of us, our beliefs change every 5 minutes based on how the wind blows. We don't have any, like I run into people all the time that I knew when I was in my 20s, like, well, what are you up to? Well, they were militant. They thought they were more militant than me in the 1980s. And now they're real realtors. I'm not bagging on them for being realtors, but this is what they're telling me. I'm making all this money. Well, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm still struggling for revolution. I'm going to do that until I die. And they're like, you're still doing that? And my response is, all you're doing is selling real estate? That's all you're doing? Wow. I turn the tables on them. Don't try to come at me like that, like there's something wrong with me for being consistent. What kind of backward society do people look at you sideways for being consistent to your principles? That's what we all should strive to do. And that's what Dr. King was about. And that's why we have to respect him. And the youth of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, they saw their job because they were radicalized. And we've talked extensively in other workshops about the reasons why they were radicalized. But that happened. And as that happened, they began to push Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. more to the left on radical positions. It was the organizers of SNCC who pushed Dr. King to take a stance against the Vietnam War. There were no other preachers in this country doing that. Just like there are none doing it right now. You can turn on the TV or the radio on Sunday and listen. You can turn to one channel and Reverend Pig's Feet is there giving a sermon, and you can turn to the next one and Reverend Chickenfoot is there, and go to the next one and Bishop Hoghead is there, and the next one, and Pastor Pig's Feet is there. You can hear all of them talking, but none of them are talking about justice. They're just talking about manipulative ways they can get you to give them your money. But this man, Dr. King, was not interested in that kind of pastoral experience. He was interested in using his faith in Jesus Christ and the gospel of Christianity to bring about justice in this world. And we are not opposed to any religion. But what we say is the way Dr. King used it, that's the way it's supposed to be used. And if it's not being used for that, it's nothing but a scam. It's nothing but a drug. You may as well, I tell people all the time, they're talking about Jesus and they're not doing a damn thing for justice and humanity. I tell them, you may as well smoke crack. You may as well be alcoholic. Oh, how could you say that easily? You want me to take you to the liquor store and buy you some liquor? Because that'll be cheaper in the long run. That'll be cheaper for you to escape reality than all the money you're putting in that church plate every Sunday and talking to you about some stuff that is never going to happen, because you don't even have the basis for any of that to happen to you. That's not believing in Jesus Christ. That, we've done that workshop. Don't want to get into that here. But the point is that Dr. King understood that contradiction. And that's why he took a principled position against the Vietnam War. He took a principled position against the Black Power movement. Even though he didn't agree with it, he was smart enough to understand that the masses of people make history. So even though he didn't agree with it, he refused to join the flunkies in the other civil rights movement, and he refused to denounce it. which is what they pushed him to do. They wanted him to do that, but he refused to do it because he understood, as he himself said, riots, quote unquote, riots are the voice of the unheard. When they asked him about the rebellions happening, that was his response. He didn't respond like your Reverend Pig's Feet. Well, them people shouldn't be tearing up their own neighborhood. Sound like an old Uncle Rufus, Uncle Tom, Pastor Tom. That's what you should call him. Pastor Pig's Feet Tom. That's what you should call him. Sound like an old Uncle Remus saying that they shouldn't tear up their communities. They should be calling the police. No, I hope them Proud Boys get you. Get on your knees in front of them and say those worthless prayers that are just oxygen going into the universe, not being answered by it. They will beat your behind. They won't listen to your prayers because they don't see you as a human being. And you want to live in this fantasy existence where you think that this fantasy that you're talking about every Sunday is Christianity. This man here understood what Christianity was and is and should be. And that's why we have to respect him. And then although King's nonviolence, he saw as a principle, which we think is an error. He saw as a principle, we think that's an error. I was violent a couple of hours ago. I mean, violence, everything is dialectical. Everything has its place. Everything has its place. You can't say that you can't hate, because if you can't hate, that means you can't love, because love is the opposite of hate. So how the hell can you measure your ability to love if you can't hate? That's not scientifically possible. So everything is dialectical. If you have the capacity to love, that's because the opposite end of the barometer that you can balance it out is because you have the capacity to hate. So if you can do that, then you know that violence has its place, just like nonviolence has its place. That's just scientific reality, irrefutable. And nobody will come here because a whole bunch of people will, oh, I don't believe that. That's not the right way to think. Well, so if someone comes in your house and is trying to kill your family, you just be fine with that. You just be, well, like, I can't be, there's nothing I can do about that. I'll just call the police and wait for them to get here. I mean, some of us are cowards, so that is probably what we would do. But anybody that has any principles and any strong foundation of wanting to do what's right, you would never do that. Even if you didn't have any fighting training, you would do the best you could to defend the people you love. You would even do the best you could to defend people who hadn't done anything to deserve to be attacked, even if you didn't know them. If you're a principled person, you would do that. So even though we don't agree with Dr. King's position on this question of nonviolence as a principle, we respect him for how he manifested it, because again, he was a person who lived by principle. So even though he saw himself as seeing nonviolence as a principle, he still, on a practical level, understood that he had to, at least on some level that only he could have articulated, understood that he had to respect the fact that we had to defend ourselves. And that's why he refused to denounce the Deacons for Defense, who were an armed group that protected civil rights workers. Had it not been for the Deacons, there would have been many more. There were many civil rights workers that were murdered and killed by this society. But there would have been a whole lot more had it not been for the presence of the Deacons for Defense after 1964. Before that, there was no organized defense. People would do what they could on an individual level, but they began to bring organized resistance to the civil rights movement in the Southern United States. So Dr. King refused to denounce the Deacons and even used Charles Sims as a bodyguard. Even though he was, nonviolence was a principle, he wasn't stupid. He still understood the realities of the world that we live in. And that's another reason why we have to respect Dr. King. And so Christianity again, and Dr. King, because again, there are a lot of misguided Christians who see faith as a personal banker. I mean, go to any church on a Sunday and you'll have these people get up when they pass the plates around. It's a good scam they got going in church. They'll get up and they'll have these people give testimony. Those of you that have been in Christian church, you know I'm telling the truth. And they'll have these people give testimony while they're passing the plate around. Why would they do that? What's the point? What's the strategy behind that? And these people are talking about how they gave more of their money to the church. And because they gave more of their money to the church, what? All of these great things started happening in their house. And it's all capitalist value stuff. Nobody gets up in church in this backward, decadent society and says, I give all this money to the church, and that's why we see all this justice increasing in the world. Nobody does that. Instead, what you hear is this backward, superficial, worthless, childish analysis. Well, I started tithing to the church and now I got a house. My credit score was 500 and I still got a house. It wasn't nothing but Jesus. No, it wasn't nothing but you being a damn liar. And it wasn't nothing but you had some other factors that you're not sharing with everybody. But the church wanted you to get up and lie because our people are so oppressed that we're so gullible and so desperate for some measure of success in this backward capitalist system that we'll believe anything and we'll do anything that will help us, that we think will help us move forward. We'll do everything except the only thing that will help us move forward, which is to organize and overthrow this backward system. So the church, that's why I say the way most people use it in this society, you may as well just go ahead and smoke crack or do meth or drink alcohol or get high, any of those kind of ways, because that's all it serves as a drug to numb people to the realities of this society. But Dr. Martin Luther King didn't use it like that. Christians like Dr. King, Miss Fannie Lou Hamer, Nat Turner, etc., people who abided by the Christian religion in a liberatory sense, people who did that at home throughout Africa. Many of our effective liberation leaders, such as some of the leaders of the land and freedom movement, or what they call the Mau Mau in Kenya, considered themselves Christians. Kwame Nkrumah, on some level, talked about his adherence to some of the Christian principles. We have a number of people in our liberation movement who consider themselves Christians. There are a number of Africans in the All African People's Revolutionary Party who consider themselves Christians. People like that see Christianity as a vehicle to push us to become stronger, better people. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not Jewish. I'm not any of these organized religions, but I can respect anybody that uses their faith to push them towards creating a better world. And Dr. King was one of those people. And the thing that makes that radical, you all, is that he understood that a true faith in Jesus required him to place justice above all else, even his life. Even his life. That is a radical concept in this backward society. And for that, we have to respect Dr. King, because we know very few of these churches are speaking to the doctrine of justice that Dr. King subscribed to. You know, in 1961, there's an organization in this country, backward organization, called the National Baptist Convention. It's an organization of Baptist churches, primarily African churches. There are a number of church organizations in the Christian community. The National Baptist Convention, there's the Foursquare Ministries, there's the Church of God in Christ. All of these church organizations, they're like corporations. They don't get involved in any political movements. They don't support Black Lives Matter. They don't support Trans Lives Matter. They're homophobic. They're pro-capitalist. They do support war. You know, they stand up in support of war. They accept this white supremacist capitalist notion that the United Snakes of America is synonymous with Christianity. That's like absolutely impossible, but they accept that. So they don't accept this doctrine of justice. So in 1961, Dr. King tried to run to become president of the National Baptist Convention as a strategic approach to try to move the National Baptist Convention to become active in civil rights. And there was so much reaction to Dr. King's efforts at that convention in 1961. So many of these chicken foot cornbread Negro ministers didn't want to have any threat posed to their collection plates and had no intention of getting involved in the movement to bring justice to our people, just wanted our people to be so oppressed that they would think the only thing they could do to alleviate the oppression is give their money to Pastor Pig's Feet so he could buy, at that time, a Cadillac. Today it's a Lexus or a Tesla. And so they didn't want to have anything to do with Dr. King. And so there was violence at that convention. A man was killed because of the tension around Dr. King trying to push the National Baptist Convention to become more of a formidable force in fighting for justice for African people and all of humanity. So Dr. King was attempting to use his faith and spread that gospel so that it would expand, and our people who are in these positions of power within these backward churches would receive that and begin to implement that. And he was not successful in that regard, but he made every attempt that he could, because he understood that the concept that Christianity is the same as social justice is absolutely correct. And that even revolution and socialism are consistent with Christianity, are consistent with Islam, are consistent with Judaism, are consistent with Ife, are consistent with Santeria, are consistent with Verdun, are consistent with any type of spiritual faith that's supposed to be talking about making you a better person. There's nobody that can effectively argue that the capitalist system makes people better people. So how the hell can you be a Christian or Muslim or be Jewish or be practicing Santeria? How could you do any of those things and then be pro-capitalist and say that you're honest about your faith? It's only possible for people that aren't serious and are only seeing their faith as a mechanism to manipulate people and make money, put money in that collection plate to do those things. That's the only thing that it could be. So let's talk about the real Dr. King versus the sanitized Dr. King, the king that the capitalist system wants you to know, the poot butt king that they want you to emulate. Let's talk about the difference between that poot butt and the real Dr. King, because you can be nonviolent as Dr. King was and still be a visionary of courage. You can do that. In fact, in many ways, how Dr. King approached that question, I think, is much more honorable. I honestly don't have that capacity and that level of discipline to do that the way he did. If them crackers would have come over there, the one that came over there got it. But if more of them would have come over there, they would have got what the ancestor gave me to give them. I just don't have it in me to have that level of development that Dr. King and those that believe like him personified with the principle of nonviolence. But that did not make him a pushover and someone who was not strong. In fact, you should see that as making him stronger. And that's the king that we want to talk about now. Because as we said, he was driven by these ideas of justice, not money. That's very important. Dr. King was not concerned about making money, even though he was raised and had a PhD and was basically on that pathway for a petty bourgeoisie lifestyle. He clearly made the decision that he was not concerned about prestige, and he was not willing, especially later in his life, to compromise. He was the most well-known leader in this country to come out against the Vietnam War. He alienated people that he was working with in the NAACP, in Roy Wilkins, in the Urban League, in Whitney Young, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was president of this country at that time. King had working relationships with all of those people and sacrificed all of that to do what was right and to take a position based on principle. That is not something someone does when they're concerned about money. That's only something that someone does when the only concern that they have is doing what's right under the vision of their God, doing what's right for humanity. And that is a radical posture, especially for the backward and reactionary way that Christianity is practiced in this society by the majority of people who claim that they're Christians. In fact, I love the bumper sticker. Jesus, please protect me from your followers. That is absolutely true. And so King's morality and courage was the reason that youth respected him. That's what we have to always remember. And why revolutionaries respect him. We're not concerned We never have been concerned about King's position on nonviolence. We've never been concerned about that because we know that any honest person eventually will grow. Any honest person eventually will grow. An honest person is constantly in moral conflict. Everything you do, you will question it. A lot of you that experience that, that's the reason why you experience it, because you are struggling to be an honest person. So everything, how you talk to people, how you respond to people, what you do, you constantly second guess that because you have it in you to want to be a right thinking and acting person. So that will by itself bring trauma because of this dialectical struggle we're talking about. It will bring trauma to your life, but that is a good thing because that trauma and your struggle will make you a stronger person, a more just person. And a lot of these people run around, they don't think twice about what they say to people or how they treat people because they're just, they don't have souls. Those white supremacists out there today, they don't have souls. They don't care. Those kind of people will never, ever have the moral fortitude to stand up against you. It doesn't matter. They can be trained in jujitsu, Krav Maga, Kaji Kumbo, karate, capoeira. It does not matter. They will not have the moral fortitude to stand up against you because all you need is that morality. Fidel Castro was 100% correct. The only qualification for leadership is sincerity. Everything else you can be taught. But if you don't have the sincerity, you can never advance. You can come with nothing but sincerity and you can claim all types of victory because that sincerity will put you in a position to grow and develop the skills that you need to be an accomplished organizer to fight back against these beasts. This is what Dr. King understood. This is radical, you all, because he understood this 50 years ago. And you just came from church with Reverend Dr. Corned Beef Haddish, and he don't even understand that today, 50 years later. These ministers that out here now, listen, some of us are just so insane. Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, all of these people should be publicly flogged for pimping the concept of Jesus Christ to make money. These people, Creflo Dollar, they should be taken out and beaten. And all these financial possessions they have that they got by robbing the people blind, the people should just run up in the churches and take all that out, run up in their houses and take it all from them, take it back from them. That would be a wonderful act. These people have no right to have this stuff. They've robbed it and stole it from the masses of people. So King's morality and courage, this is the reason why we have to respect his model. And we need more people like Dr. King to emulate the courage that he had. We need more people like that to place justice above money. I'm not telling you to go out and cause harm to those preachers. Most of you ain't gonna do it anyway. But the point is that we should be resisting this effort. We should be calling it out. When people come to you and they're talking to you about, oh, the pastor said this, you should be asking them, this is how you should fight back. You should be asking them, well, why isn't your pastor talking about the attacks against the Palestinian youth in Hamas? Why isn't your pastor talking about the efforts to deny trans people their rights all across this backward country? Why is your pastor not talking about the continued exploitation and oppression of our people at home all over the African continent? Why is your pastor not talking about how we are disrespected as African people every day in this backward empire? If your pastor ain't talking about none of those kind of things, your pastor ain't saying a damn thing. That's how we should be responding to these people. Instead of just saying, yeah, I'm gonna send you the daily word. I don't need your damn daily word. You need to figure out how you can put a water hose in one ear and turn the water up to the highest level so it can blow out all that dust, dirt, and all of that refuge that's in between your ears. That's what we need to be talking about how to do. You gonna send me a word. What kind of morality are you gonna talk to me about? Your whole life is immoral. because you look at the suffering of humanity and don't do a damn thing to try to prevent it. So this is what makes Dr. King, his existence, such a radical existence, you all. And this is why we want to say that Dr. King, in the last couple of years of his life, was on a track to say that all I want to do, that's what he said. Read the speech he gave at the church in Memphis, April 3rd, 1968, the night before he was assassinated. What did he say? He said, I want to live a long life. Longevity has its purpose, it has its place. But he said, all I want to do now is God's will. That's what he said. Look it up yourself. What did that mean? What was he talking about? He was saying that he came to the point where he understood that he had a responsibility to stand up for justice, no matter what the consequences. That man knew that this government was planning to kill him. That's why the next thing he said is that I see that we're going to get to the mountaintop. I might not get there with you. The man knew what was going to happen in his life. He knew what was in store for him, but he didn't give a damn because he reached the point where what was important to him was to do what is right. Whether you interpret that as doing God's will, whether you're like us and me and you interpret it as doing what's in the best interest of humanity, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. The point is that once you can get to that point, all these things you're scared of, you'll no longer be scared of. There's no damn way in hell a white man with a swastika is going to scare you. You laugh in his face like I laughed in his face today. There's no way in hell what they can do can scare you because everything they got is based on injustice. And if people ask me, well, how can you not be offended? I said, because I'm on the right side of justice. I know who I am. I'm not supposed to be here anyway. But I have better, he definitely ain't supposed to be here. He should get in the canoe and go back to Europe, where it's white. And he could go to the whitest part of Europe and then he could have exactly what he wants. That'd be great. But this is indigenous people's land. So I don't have to feel anything about him. He's no threat to me. If I see him on the street, he wouldn't have a damn thing to say to me because it wouldn't take anything for me to make his evening terrible if he did. So this is what we got to get to. How we can get stronger in this regard, you all. That's what we want to say, because this is the message that Dr. King had for us this April 2023, when we commemorate 56 years since he was taken from us in his physical form. His spirit still lives, and the message he clearly had for us is stand on truth and justice, no matter what the consequences. Stand on truth and justice. Not only will you make a better contribution to humanity, but it will improve the quality of your own life in ways that right now most of us can never even imagine. So we thank you for joining us. As always, we appreciate you being here, and we want to invite you back next week. It's Women's Mortality Month is coming up. So we're going to have a presentation. Shakur is going to share some very critical information to you. So if you're a dude, don't say, well, I don't have to participate. No, that you need the information as much, if not more, than women and marginalized gender people. So come on like you would come to any other program. And then again, we're doing this campaign. Please take pictures, wear white, put on something white, take a picture, make a little sign. It doesn't have to be artistic quality. African Liberation Day 2023. You can send it to the email address there, or you can find a way to send it to our website. But the email address there is Uhuru Literature, UHURU, LITERATURE @gmail.com. Not seeing any pictures coming in. Please take a picture. It'll take you 5 seconds. We are trying to make this a worldwide campaign. So please do that. I have an example on the screen there from African Liberation Day 2019, the last time we had an in-person one. That's me in the back with my fist in the air. So we want you to please do that. There's a flyer for African Liberation Day. It's coming up. Go to the AAPRP Forward Ever shop. Please do that. Go to AAPRP-intl.org and join the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. Go to betterworld.me. This video will be up there along with all the others. Hoodcommunist.org. You want to go there. Go support all of the AAPRP broadcasts. Buy my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. Please do that. And please donate to abetterworld.me for African Liberation Day 2023. Believe in yourself, you all. Believe in your capacity. We believe in you. We want you to believe in yourself. Don't let these people get you down. I'm high today on the spirit of the people. That's all I need. That's all you need too. But if you say you need Jesus or Allah, then take that and use it the way Dr. King used his. And the minute we all start doing that, these problems we have will be over overnight. Have a great rest of your evening. Forward ever, backwards never.